Welcome to another prospect interview here on the No Ceilings NBA podcast feed and YouTube channel. I am Maxwell Baumbach, and today I am joined by Colorado State's Nique Clifford. Nique, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to have you. We've had a lot of fans of your game on our staff for a long time, and this year it really kind of came together for you in a big way. You really exploded onto the radar. The first thing I always like to ask guys anytime you have them on the show, because we get a lot of people that are NBA fans, they don't really watch much college ball, and they start to kind of parachute into the NBA draft. If someone's never seen you play before, how would you describe your game?
For me, I would say versatility. I feel like my game is based on that. I feel like I do a lot of things on the court. Offensively, I feel like I can score at three levels. I can get downhill, shoot the three, play in the mid range, and then I feel like I can distribute and play make when I need to. And then defensively, I feel like I could guard 1 through 4, and be a presence on that end as well. And then I feel like I'm a good rebounder as well. So I try and do a little bit of everything on the court just to help my team win.
For sure. Yeah, you're one of those guys that like 6'6", check a lot of boxes on the court. Your game just stands out on film because it's really quirky. Like there aren't a lot of guys that have sort of your athletic tools, your strength, and then like a fundamental base mixed with creativity. Like were there I'm always curious whenever I see a player that it's almost hard to come up with player comparisons for. Were there guys that you modeled your game after, or is it just taking basketball concepts and then kind of letting your own creativity shine?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm my own unique player.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, People have compared me similarities that I may have to guys like a Jalen Williams or Mikal Bridges. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
just guys that can do a little bit of everything on the court. I'm still trying to get to their level, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think I have similarities to those type of guys of just trying to do everything on the court. A guy that I watched ever since I was little was Kobe Bryant, so I watched a
Mm-hmm.
lot of film on him and try and just learn things to implement into my own game in that aspect. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's really really fascinating kind of game the F. Let's take it all the way back to the beginning here though. What was it that got you into basketball kind of growing up and made you pursue the sport?
Uh, my 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 family was big into basketball. My dad played growing up, and then my mom always loved watching it as well. She never played, but I'd say those two were really what what got me into basketball. I had the little mini Tykes rim when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
That was my go-to. I was the only child, so that was my outlet for everything. Was just sports in general. But just had an inner passion for basketball ever since I was young. And then growing up, uh, loved Kobe Bryant, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a big inspiration for me as well. Just watching him, wanting to be like him when I grew up. So I'd say those two things probably were what got me into basketball.
Mm-hmm. And you started off your college career at Colorado, um, kind of a just a year over year sort of development sort of path for you. What was your recruitment like? What led you to Colorado? And then what kind of lessons did you learn during your time there prior to Colorado State?
Yeah, nah. The recruitment process for me was uh, pretty hectic. It was, I didn't really get recruited as I was younger. It wasn't until my junior year that I really started getting recruited after I had my growth spurt my sophomore summer going into my junior year. School started to take notice and put interest into me, and um, the process was tiring. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to kind of get done with that process before my senior year started because I really just wanted to focus on my team and be able to give my all into that and not have the stress of trying to pick a school still. So, my I had a lot of the bigger schools start to come in later once I was
Mm-hmm.
almost done with my process. But I kind of just was over it and just ready to make a choice because I had good options. So I think my
Yeah.
top four was CSU, Colorado, Wyoming, and Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had good options. Ended up feeling like CU was the best option for me, my family, and then just being able to stay in state was pretty cool as well.
Hmm.
That wasn't the deciding factor, but
Sure.
it was a cool thing to be able to have all my people around. So I ended up there, and did 3 years, had a
Hmm.
great time there. It was ups and downs, of course, but I learned a lot, man. It was you know I really learned how to handle adversity. That was the
Hmm.
biggest lesson I took away from probably being there. I had great teammates when I was there, but like I said, I went through ups and downs, and I never really had gone through that as a basketball player. You
For
go through
sure.
that stuff in life, but as a basketball player, everything was always really good for me. I was always the
Hmm.
man. I was, doing well basketball wise. So I kind of learned how to, when I'm not playing, when I am playing, when I'm playing well, when I'm not playing well, just how to balance that, and not get too high and not get too low. So it really matured me a lot as a basketball player and as a person.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Like you had, um, your freshman season, you played 4 minutes a game. You weren't on the court a whole lot. Your junior year, you had a bit of a down season before just exploding as a senior. How did you kind of keep a level head and come out the better for it in both of those circumstances? Because I think a lot of guys we see like something goes wrong and they just don't really get over the hump, or we see it all the time where guys go to a high major program, they don't play, and then even if they transfer down, like the confidence is kind of gone. Like how did you weather that storm and come out on the other side of it?
I think it's credit to just the way I was raised, of just like, you know, you never give up, you never quit. You just keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that mindset of just like, I'm not gonna let nothing break me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it was tough at times when I wasn't playing, and I thought I was gonna come in and play right away. That's
Mm-hmm.
how most freshmen think.
Yeah.
But you go through that, you learn a lot from it. But my mentality helped me get through it. I did have a time where I lost a little bit of confidence in myself and questioned things that I was doing. But I think what helped me get that back was just kind of, I had people around me. I had a good, tight knit circle of
Mm-hmm.
people who really just helped me work through that stuff. I was always very prideful and just like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna be good. Like, uh, I feel like I'm a tough dude, tough minded individual.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just trying to work through that by myself. But once I opened up and let people around me help me, I
Mm-hmm.
think that allowed me to realize what was going on and just, build from that and almost get that confidence back in a sense. And then, honestly, the biggest thing for me was getting closer to God through that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I never grew up super religious or nothing like that.
Yeah.
Always believed in God or whatnot, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, I uh, I really got a better relationship with God, and I think that helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me. I think that was the biggest thing that just changed. And then, um, once I made that transfer over to CSU, the coaches were huge and just instilling that confidence back into me. I had a really good off season and putting in the work with some of my coaches, and I always believed and trusted in myself and knew what I was capable of. I just had to go show that and have the
Mm-hmm.
platform to do so. So it was definitely a good move for me.
Yeah, yeah, it worked out exceptionally well, I would say, and I give you a lot of credit for working through all that, and especially opening up to people. Like I think it's one of those things where a lot of people can put a lot of pressure on themselves and kind of fold because of it. I think for a lot of
Yeah,
guys in any walk of life, I think just talking it out and looking into your spirituality and things like that can do a lot. It can do a lot for a person.
no
So I,
doubt,
I credit you for that.
100%. Thank you.
Your skill set is, like we mentioned earlier, it's super well rounded. So one of the first things I want to talk about is like watching the playoffs right now.
Mm,
You kind of can't have any glaring weaknesses anymore. Like everybody that's on the court is able to do a little bit of everything, and I think that's a big part of why you were climbing up draft boards really aggressively right now. Is people look at a guy who's able to just do a lot of things well. Um, you have a lot of different ways you can beat people. in like a one-on-one kind of setting, whether it's just like a basic spot up and you've got to make a quick decision, whether it's, seeing the next passing read, which we'll get to in a little bit, but whether it's like, I'm going to shoot, I'm going to make a guy dance and pull up, I'm going to blow by, I'm going to push through this guy and finish at the rim. Like, what is your process when you attack, and how do you kind of decide what you're going to do to kind of get where you want to go against the defender?
I think it's just, I try and play the right way,
Mm-hmm.
make the right decision. If I have the shot, shoot it. If I don't, make the extra pass to somebody who's wide open. If somebody's closing out to me hard, I attack them and either go score for myself or create for a teammate. The game is simple, as long as you just keep it simple. Like I said, make the right reads, make plays. It's just better to play that way. It's more fun when you
Mm-hmm.
get your teammates involved, and I think coaching is huge as well. Like my team that I was a part of just was unselfish, and we played the right way. So it was fun to be able to, make that pass, knowing I'm probably gonna get it back at some point too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say just making those reads, when to shoot, when to attack, and then my coaches instilling that trust and confidence into me to they want me to shoot that shot when I'm open.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you'd never question it at that point.
For sure. One thing that really stood out uh, on the film, obviously, with just the fact you're able to like really get up above the rim to finish, but even just from an analytics like percentage standpoint, you were an outstanding finisher. You made around like 70% of your shots at the rim, which is like a center number, not a number you normally see from a wing player. Um, how did you develop your kind of finishing game? Was it a matter of just becoming more athletic, becoming stronger, and having that touch, or is it how you read the defense? Like, what makes you so effective as a finisher?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all those things. Just getting stronger, being able to finish through contact a little more. Having that touch. I work on
Mhm.
that stuff a lot. And then, dunks make things a little easier too. That's almost a guaranteed point most of the times when you're dunking it. So just having that mindset to just go punch it and know that I'm going to make that shot, rather than having to use the touch or whatnot.
For sure, for sure. And then the other thing you talked about is like when you get downhill, sometimes you're still, you're still looking out for other guys. You're not just one of those like I call them like next one passers. Like they're guys that can get assists because they can swing it to the next guy who can hit a shot.
Mhm,
But I think what makes your game so much more interesting is that you're like this really talented downhill driver. Like you can see a lot of stuff on the go, and a lot of people are a little bit more narrow in their focus when they're attacking the basket. Like they don't just see the floor as well as you do. Where did
mhm.
your passing vision come from? Because I think that's always an interesting thing. Like I know you mentioned having a growth spurt. Like, were you a
Yeah.
guard growing up? Is it something you developed? Is it something from watching film? Like, where did that come from in your game?
Nah, I grew up playing point guard my whole life. Uh, so I just always had those guard skills. My pops was the one that really instilled that into me. He always taught me like be a pass first player. Like you're gonna get your teammates involved, make it fun for everyone else. And so that's just the way I grew up playing. I like to distribute the ball more than I like scoring. So um, when I'm able to do that, it's a lot of fun for me. So I think that's what I credit to being able to have that vision to make plays for others.
Mm-hmm.
In college, I wasn't the primary ball handler, so it was learning and adjusting once I got into college of how to do that off ball
Mm-hmm.
a little bit better. And so I think I've developed that over time of making those plays, making those reads, like I was talking about earlier. But like I said, I played point guard growing up, and I think that's what kind of developed that vision and
Mm-hmm.
playmaking skills.
For sure. So one thing that I think people may question with your game is if they're trying to pick nits,
Mhm.
is going to be your shot, because you were a guy that you didn't take a ton of threes, but you hit them at a really high clip. You made 37.6% of your threes this year. You were really good on mid-range pull-ups. You were really good unguarded and even over closeouts, just off the catch in general. But how do you feel about your shot? And if someone were to say like, I'm not, so sure that Nique is this great shooter, but how do you feel about your shot currently?
Man, I think my shot was it felt a lot better this year.
Mm-hmm.
I every offseason I worked on just making my jump shot consistent. And I feel like this year it actually showed. And it came down to confidence. That's
Mhm.
something I got to continue to keep growing and getting better at. At one point I was shooting like 50 some percent. And then I had a dip in like a streak where I missed like 20 straight. And then I
Mhm.
don't know what was going on. So that kind of hurt my percentages as well. But I just trusted in myself. My teammates trusted in me to keep shooting. And I was able to start hitting more towards the end of the season.
Mhm.
But I think it's definitely something that I'm going to continue to become more consistent at and continue to speed up as I get to an even higher level. Um, and even through this pre-draft process I've been going through, that's something that we've been focusing on.
Mhm.
Because when I do come into the league, I'm going to have to be, a knockdown shooter, be someone who could defend and do those little things. I'm not going to come in being the man right away where you
Mhm.
can have the ball in your hands and go score every time. So
For
uh,
sure. Yeah.
I have the maturity to realize that, and that's something that I can continue to grow upon.
For sure. And it showed up, yeah, like you had a big jump in your free throw percentage this year as well. Was that like a confidence thing also? Because I mean,
Yeah,
you're shooting it better kind of at every level. So.
100%. It was
Mhm.
all mental. It was all mental for me.
Mhm.
I've always been able to shoot free throws, shoot threes. It was all mental.
Mhm.
Just questioning myself and having that confidence level. But I think that's what helped me grow at Colorado was
Mhm.
learning those things. And I feel like everything happens for a reason. So I feel like I had to go through that to mature. And I think it prepared me for this next step that I'm about to
For
go through.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important for guys because I think a lot of times, like you mentioned, being the man in high school, and then you get to college, and right away you're not playing and things like that. I think a lot of
Right.
guys just aren't prepared for that mentally. Like they get to
No,
the
thanks.
league and they get punched in the mouth a little bit, and they don't kind of know how to deal with it. So I think
Right.
that's definitely a feather in your cap coming in is that you've been through a lot of this and you know how to get through it.
No, no
Um,
doubt.
let's kind of move to the defensive end of the ball because I think there's a lot of intrigue there, obviously as well. Um, just to start off, like you're a pretty aggressive defender, and not in like a bad way. Like there's a lot of guys that are aggressive on defense and like they're getting way out of position, they're making all sorts of mistakes,
Mhm.
whatever. Like you were a very good aggressive defender. What is your mentality on the defensive end of the ball?
I think just trying to stay solid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't I, I don't try and gamble too often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I usually am pretty smart in most scenarios of being able to know when I'm able to gamble a little bit or go for that steal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really just trying to use my length to my advantage, keep my man in front of me, and then as well as being a good team defender, using my length in gaps to maybe rake at balls, get steals, um, go block some help side. So all those things I think are what I try and use to my advantage is my length, my athleticism to just be a solid one-on-one defender as well as a team defender.
For sure. So one thing that you mentioned I thought was like really interesting that showed up well on the film is you mentioned like knowing when to gamble and things like that. And what I was just like fascinated by digging through the tape was I feel like you had more blocks as a help defender in weird areas of the court where you don't normally see guys get like blocks as a help defender. Like a guy will be like around the elbow and like you'll be helping off somebody else and you'll see like, oh, they don't see my man. I'm going to come over and like swat that from behind. Like just a
Mhm.
lot of like unconventional stuff. Like
Yeah.
where does that sort of creativity come from? Is that something that you pick up on during film sessions? Like, hey, when this guy's in the spot, I can do that. Or is it like a spur of the moment, just sort of feel thing that you're able to gauge and know like what you can and can't get to?
Yeah, I think it's both a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I watch a lot of film on that type of stuff of when I can, you know, and it's also knowing personnel too. Like if I'm guarding somebody who's not a great shooter, I can help off a little more and go make that play. So I think that's a big thing. But also knowing in the film what a guy's tendency is when he beats somebody, or he's not maybe like he's not looking to pass when he gets downhill. So I'm already thinking, okay, he's going to score, so I can go help that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that, and then it's also a field thing. I feel like I have a good sense of when I can go help, or if my he doesn't see my man, Sometimes in that scenario, I can go help a little more too and block it from behind or come and help side like we talked about.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just really kind of blown away by that element of your game. To be honest, it was really interesting to see. Something else that I think is going to be big in your favor is, again, talking about the playoffs. There's so much just sort of switching and things like that. Defenses go out of their way to sort of hunt mismatches and find them on the court. You're not an easy mismatch target. Like, you've got good feet. You're really strong. You move really well. But what I'm curious to is, like, how do you approach guarding different types of players? Like, if you're guarding a smaller player versus a bigger player, like, what sort of adjustments are you making? Whether it's positioning, how close you're guarding the ball, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing differently? Because you guarded like a wide variety of guys, and a lot of times just the best player on the other team. So how do you kind of change your approach based on who that guy is?
Yeah, no, like I said, I think it comes down to knowing people's strengths, what they're good at. Um, I feel like I am able to sense that and know using my length and athleticism how much space I need to give somebody. I think where I can continue to grow as a defender, guarding those little smaller, fast guards, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's something I can continue to improve upon. Um, but there's so many areas I can keep growing at as a basketball player, which is why I'm so excited for this next step because my
Mm-hmm.
potential, I'm not even close to where I'm gonna be in the future. So um, I think that's in my favor. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, like I said, I feel like I can guard 1 through 4, so I can switch on
Mm-hmm.
to a bigger wing, a smaller guard, and be able to guard them. Um, but I think it also comes down to pride. Like I
Sure.
feel like I take pride in not letting my man score on me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's the biggest part of defense is just having that pride.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. As you're kind of going through this pre-draft process, I know you've touched on a couple things, but like, what are like the biggest areas of your game that you're just like, I really want to focus on this, or show teams that I'm better at this than they think, or that I've added this new wrinkle? Like, what have been the key kind of building blocks or areas of improvement for you?
I think just they want to see that I'm gonna be able to be a knockdown shooter, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
So going into these workouts, I'm looking at being a good shooter, trying to show that skill set, and then also show a little bit of my playmaking that I can play 1 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's in my favor to be able to show that versatility. And then, defense. I gotta be a lockdown defender and go prove to these NBA teams that it wasn't just a fluke during the season. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is just who I am. So all those different things, and then continue to show my rebounding. I think that I can add that to a team and
Mm-hmm.
help them in that category as well.
Yeah, rebounding is something that gets, I think, overlooked a lot, and it's something that we talk about internally. Is that guys who rebound the ball just tend to have a much higher success rate. Like, guys that are good college rebounders, like,
Hmm.
the success rate is a lot higher, and I think a lot of times that gets overlooked. Um, this is something I always like to just throw at you guys. After your playing career, like when you're done, like just playing basketball, is there
Hmm.
anything that you want to do after that you're like, man, I'd really love to do this? It could be in basketball, out of
Yeah,
basketball, whatever. Like, what would you want to do once this is all kind of said and done on the court?
yeah. No, I'm getting my degree in communication. So that's my major. So I think probably get into coaching, maybe
Hmm.
potentially, or
Yeah.
sports broadcasting. I've thought
Hmm.
about those two things, but I definitely want to stay around the game. Like I
Hmm.
got too much passion and too much love for it that I couldn't see myself leaving basketball. So I'd say one of those two things potentially, but uh, hoping to play as long as I possibly
Yeah,
can.
it's a long way away. You got
Yeah,
you got plenty
no
you got plenty of
doubt.
time.
A little
For
bit of time, hopefully.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I think you got time. You're good. Where can people kind of follow along with the journey? Like, if they want to follow you on social media, where can they find you and follow along with these next steps in your career?
Man, shout myself out. Okay. My Instagram is OTN_neat,
Mhm.
NIQUE. My Twitter is the same thing, I think. And yeah, that's my two social media platforms that I use. So
Awesome.
yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everybody listening. Make sure you subscribe to No Ceilings NBA on your podcast feed and our YouTube channel, as well as our Substack for all of our written content. Nique, thanks again so much for coming on the program.
I appreciate you having me, man.
All right, take care, everybody.